Greetings and various assorted salutations. This is the Spring 2022 Pedagogy Rant. I admit I'm a bit behind schedule. I've been a bit inactive on my YouTube channel. Things have been busy in the summer and fall. They're still busy, but I've gotten a bit better at managing things, and I've taken care of a number of things. If you're wondering why I'm vague, it's because I feel I have no reason to ever truly explain what I'm up to at any given moment in my personal life. Anyways, no matter. Pedagogy Rant. Now, one of the things that always comes up, that I've had come up a few times, is what is a pedagogy rant? And a lot of that stems from what is pedagogy. Let me see if I can get a dictionary definition of what pedagogy is. I'm not around my computer, so I can't exactly look it up. I'll have to use a book and remember how to spell. Oh, peanut, peculiar. Where is it? Pedestrian.
Survival guide update. To increase.
Does this dictionary not have it? No, wait, here it is. Went too far. Pedagogy. Noun. The science or profession of teaching. 2. The theory of how to teach. So I kind of use the pedagogy rants as a chance for me to rant and rave about how I do things, or how I'd like to do things. As we know, in practice, perhaps not the most appropriate saying, but no plan survives contact with the enemy. Anyways, I couldn't resist. What are we looking at? Well, first off, for spring 2022, we live in an uncertain world. It's certainly that case. Things that people want gone are not gone, and the world is changing, and not necessarily for the better, at least not in the short term and whatnot. What I know not is what the future holds. I can plan based on what I know and what tools I currently have available. In the moment, I will do what I can with what I've got. That's a phrase that I've written down. I will do what I can with what I've got in the moment. That's a phrase I keep written down and try and keep in mind as I move forward. Anyways, let's take a look at what we're looking at for spring 2022. It is just going to abruptly start in our school district. We're going to have finals week on Friday and then come back on Monday, and suffering begins in a new semester. Not the ideal way of starting it, but let's not think of ideals. We clearly don't have much of those anymore. What classes am I teaching? I'm going to be teaching U.S. History 2 and U.S. History 3. Predominantly U.S. History 2, if I recall correctly. Now, U.S. History 2 is an old familiar. It's the class I have technically taught the most. Even though I was originally hired to teach world history, somehow I landed teaching U.S. history, which is ironic because my specialty is more so European history. But that's neither here nor there. That's just a distant memory, or increasingly distant memory. Anyways, U.S. History 2. What is it? U.S. History 2 covers the middle part of American history, essentially looking at the Industrial Revolution and westward expansion after the Civil War, all the way through World War I, and we end on a low note on the Great Depression / New Deal era. Many people find the US 2 course to be not too terribly exciting. Its only major war is World War I, and unfortunately the way it's structured, we don't spend a lot of time at that. Though then again, neither did the US in the events considered. And I don't know, it's just kind of, it picks up and then it drops off, kind of no clear start or end when you get right down to it. World War II is the next course, and the Civil War is the course before, so it's kind of the in-betweenies. That's okay, though. It's a class that I've come to like. I like the unit on American imperialism. It's an interesting topic. And the Industrial Revolution is always a topic that's fascinated me. But no, so, and it does cover into European history what I was studying when I was in college. So, in the grand scheme of things, I've come to like the course. But talking about the course in and of itself, thankfully I've got a lot of experience. It's a course I've already run before in Canvas, last spring incidentally, and so I can take a lot of the experience I have just as a teacher and a lot of the technology experience I have and reapply it to make a course that hopefully will run smoothly. I know my students are in all kinds of circumstances and situations, and so I want to make sure that my course is as accessible as possible, regardless of what happens. I want to make sure that it's available online, but I also want to make sure it's available on paper. I've tried to rig my course, and a lot of people don't quite comprehend it, but you can do large parts of my courses online or offline. You can use your computer as a glorified storage thing for instructions. I try and write everything out, and I try and make everything as accessible as possible. Part of this is out of selfish desire. Yes, I want to help my students, but also I want to kind of organize my thinking when I'm teaching. And so my courses are designed to kind of, they get a bit over-explainy in things, especially instructions, because I'm writing them for me. I think through writing, or basically rambling about how to do things. But we'll see if that helps them. So, what I'm hoping to bring into US2 is the built-up experiences I've had over the past few semesters that allow me to offer better depth in the topics that I'm teaching. And I'd like to bring in more student choice. I've had some time to learn about interesting side topics in U.S. history too, things on imperialism like the Banana Wars and things like that. Because there's some things that we're expected to know and I'm expected to teach the students, but there should still be some space to follow some of our own interests. And this is one of those challenges that people run into, and that separates the people who like history from the people who don't like history. I think the people who like history like it because they find something interesting, and they find a way to shoehorn it into whatever they're talking about. That's a good example. I had a few students a number of years back who were really interested in some particular topic. Why is it escaping me? What was it? Oh, military history. There were some kids that were interested in military history. They were in JROTC, or whatever they call it now, and they were interested in what is the military doing at any given time. And I wish I'd been able to incorporate it more then, but I want to make sure I can incorporate like some choices, so that when we're studying about something, you have a chance to like go into more detail about some subject. Because there's some basic factors, like, why did westward expansion happen, what's manifest destiny, things like that. But there's a lot of other interesting topics that may catch people's eyes. Like, some people are interested in the trails. Some people are interested in the Native Americans of the Great Plains. Some people are interested in the Buffalo Soldiers, or other topics like that. And while we give a cursory subject, I'm hoping to create some activity options, so students don't have to do them all, where they can kind of dive into a topic that catches their eye. I've seen great success with this in U.S. History 3, with having students be able to choose different activities and topics and side projects that delve into more World War II stuff or Cold War materials. And I'm hoping to bring that experience into U.S. History 2. But I think I was able to bring it into U.S. History 3 sooner, even though I've taught U.S. History 3 less, because U.S. History 3 is more modern stuff and topics I'm familiar with. U.S. History 1, which I've been teaching a lot lately, is not a topic I'm as familiar with. I mainly, when I studied history, it was mainly late 1800s, 1900s on, and so early American history, Revolutionary War stuff. A lot of that stuff is memories from when I was in high school, because that's actually like a gap in my knowledge. But I'm getting off track. Well, this is a rant, so that's something. U.S. History 3, I don't have a whole lot to say about. U.S. History 3 is the other course I'm teaching, and that course covers essentially World War II up until yesterday, or as far as we can get. This last semester, the furthest we could get was the 2008 recession. Very basic, cursory coverage on that. But students deserve to know about that because that recession has happened in their lifetimes, and it had an impact on how their lives are. Maybe not an impact that we can generalize, but they need to be aware of these different events. While we cannot predict the future and history does not necessarily repeat itself, we can use the experiences we have and the lessons we learn to hopefully do the right thing or manage to float along in the present and future. So, U.S. History 3, the big changes I'm making with that one are not really that big. I've more or less figured out how I would like to teach it, and I'm not quite there yet. I have a workable model for it, and I'm just refining it. A fair amount of it is regarding technology. I want to use certain tools to help students. Differentiated learning, that's a buzzword that we like to throw around in the educational industrial complex. But the idea that if a student struggles with something, they can get support for that. And not all students will need the same support. And how to manage that is a challenge. There's better teachers than me who could do it on paper and pencil. But I have to use technology, and so I'm going to use differentiated learning in some things, like test-taking support. A lot of students, if I had a dime for it, for every student or parent who said, oh, my student, or I'm not a good test taker, and I tell them, well, you need to look at what you're good at, what you're bad at, and learn from the experience. And I've never been quite sure if I could convey that, and I've never really had the skill to track it. Statistics is not my strong suit. With some technology, the mastery paths, or whatever they call it in Canvas, I think I can get those to work. I can maybe get some support. So maybe when a student doesn't do well on a test, they can have some resources that they can work through to help them understand what went wrong, how they can improve, and maybe reflect on their test preparation methods. And I'm hoping to use technology for that, because the big thing I'm running into, the big weakness that we have is we only have, I as an individual human being only have so much attention and so much energy in the moment. And I can use technology to extend myself and provide resources and focus that maybe I can't give in that moment. But I can come up with some good test-taking ideas. I can come up with some good analysis. Or I can come up with some good standardized feedback before that test ever happens, or before that learning experience ever happens. And I can put that into the computer and make it so that the computer unlocks it if the student needs it. I consider the technology I use an extension of myself. I have a kind of a humanistic, I think that's the word. No, I don't know what the word is. Transhumanism? Metahumanism? I'd look it up in the dictionary I have, but the dictionary I have is a bit dated. Let's see here. Well, they have the moon landing in here. Yeah, this is from 1972. 2, so I don't know if it has what I'm looking for. Well, let's see if it's in here. Just don't have my computer in front of me while I'm doing this recording. And I'm not willing to pick up another device, but I have a book, and we can make do with what we've got. Let's see. Transfix, transform, transfusion, transgressant, transmission. Doesn't look like I have the concept I'm looking for. Oh, wait, no. That's because you mixed up the alphabet again. I do this a lot. Transcendent. Oh, grammar, you evade me. Okay. It's kind of a catch-all in here. But what I'm looking for is using the word trans in the prefix, across, beyond, through, on the other side, as in transhumanism, which is not listed in here. That's just an academic theory, I think, in this. Oh, well, I digress. Essentially what I'm saying is that I believe that technology exists to extend the capacity of the human being. And the courses I'm designing are an extension of that. Can I stand in front of a classroom and talk about the topics I'm giving? Can I throw tests and worksheets at people? Yes, I can. But I'd like to make it so that there's some choices and branching pathways and the ability for me to address the needs of multiple types of students simultaneously. And the only way I can do that with my single frail self is with technology. The branching pathways. If you get this score on an assignment or a test, you get directed to resources that help you learn from that experience. Am I going to have that with every assignment? Goodness, no, I'm not that far along. It's going to take a while, and I may never get to that. But at certain key moments, I want to provide those. So I'm going to try that with tests. I'm going to have differentiated learning. So if you get an A or a B on a test, you're doing fine. Maybe you need to review it, but some students can get away with never looking back. So they will have something else to concern themselves with. Maybe something that catches their interest, a choice activity. For students in the C and D range, that's a chance to reflect and figure out, okay, I've got some things that are working. How can I figure out what's working for me? How can I figure out what isn't working and start addressing those weak points? Because C and D students are students that they've got the basics figured out. They just need to work on their depth and their experience and practice. And so hopefully I can provide some activity and guidance for that. And then there's the lower tier for the students who fail the test. I want to have the differentiated pathway, which will be managed by the computer, to basically say, okay, we need to take a step back, figure out, okay, what did not work? Why did it not work? And what can we do to move forward? That's kind of that's kind of how I want things to be. I want the opportunity for students to grow, pursue their own interests, and, well, learn some history. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So for U.S. History 3, what that amounts to is there's some student choice activities. I've found, thanks to YouTube and whatnot, there's all kinds of mini documentaries of weird historical things. A lot of amateur historians that know a thing or two and focus on topics and making them accessible. And I know some of the students find those videos on their own, and that's good, but I find a lot of stuff too, and I want to make sure that some of that stuff is an option. So maybe there's a little reading activity or something that students pick from a bank of five or six, do one, and there'll be one on like some aspect. For example, women in World War II. international diplomacy, Navy history, tank history, stuff like that. Give some choice. I'll put that in US 2 as well, but I've started developing it in US 3. But the other thing, this is just, we've kind of talked enough about US History 2 and 3, just to talk about some general things, some generalizations. In general, between my two courses, I want to be able to offer some choice as well as cover the content that needs to be covered. Maybe it's some project-based learning. I might bring back the virtual museum. We'll see how that goes. Things like that. Using technology, but also giving the option for books. Some students, and oddly enough, even though they love their cell phones, they hate using technology to do things like work. But if you put a book in front of them, they do fine. And so I want to make sure I have the option in my classes that students, if they want to, virtually every single assignment can be turned in on paper. Yes, I realize the irony of that statement. But like if the assignment, it'll be like you want to use Microsoft Word, you can use Microsoft Word. You want to use Google Docs, you can use Google Docs. You want to submit things on paper, go ahead. I don't care about the format. I know some students are particular, some teachers are particular about how they want things done. I'm not. The main thing I'm going to have on my assignments is an indicator of who's turning it in, so I can give them the credit that they're earning, and an indicator which assignment they just worked on. That's all I really need. If it's on paper, if it's on Google, if it's in a PDF, just doesn't matter. We all learn in different ways, and the computer systems I'm setting up for my course will accept it in almost any format. I've joked students can turn in assignments in German. No one's taken me up on that offer. But c'est la vie. Anyways, so we've talked about the technology, we've talked about the courses. What are some of the challenges I anticipate for this coming spring? Well, the biggest challenge I think we'll run into is disengagement. There are a number of students who have reached a point where they feel that whatever they're doing in high school is not relevant. Part of this stems from some of them are more interested in maintaining their social lives, whether it be through phone or visiting with friends that they see in the schoolhouse. Others mistakenly have I'd almost say this is a pessimism of the modern age. It's kind of a postmodernistic, or are we on metamodernism now? I don't have the books in front of me, so I don't remember. But there's a number of students who have this kind of pessimistic outlook on the world. It's like nothing matters, nothing is sacred, nothing holds true meaning, it's all artificial. And I'll be honest, I come off that way to students sometimes, but I do think there's meaning in what we do. Why do we get a high school education? It's an indicator that we can learn. It's the application and cultivation of some skills that we might need down the road. And it's a common indicator that indicates you've done something up to this point. That's why there's standardized testing like the SAT. We don't know where you're coming from, but a high school diploma indicates that you have some basic capabilities and we can go from there. And it's kind of the problem you run into. A lot of people, you can tell them about the big picture, but if they're boots on the ground, they don't care. That the big picture, the end result, is too far away or too abstract. For living in a world that is on the onset of going virtual, we have a lot of people who struggle with abstract thought and long-term planning. What other challenges do I anticipate? Cell phones. Cell phones are an addiction. They are a horrifying distraction. And I don't envy the generation that's growing up with them. I mean, and I will be honest, I can't identify with them. I don't have a smartphone. I don't have the social networking the way that a lot of the people around me do. Sometimes I describe myself as living in a world of ever-increasing silence, but that's neither here nor there. That's not part of the Pedagogy Rant. That's personal philosophy, and I'll probably never go into any more detail about it because you don't deserve to know the details, and they don't matter outside of me. Anyways, so there's kind of this cell phones and peer pressure, negative peer pressure. There's good peer pressure. The peer pressure to work together, the peer pressure to succeed, those are good peer pressures. But I see a lot of people suffering from bad peer pressure. Some of it comes from looking around the room and feeling like I'm surrounded by all these people. What does it matter? Or peer pressure from social media that has this kind of I would almost call it dumb cynicism. They're cynical, but they don't know why they're cynical. It kind of reminds me of this talk of this artistic movement called zombie formalism, which I heard about, I forget where. But zombie formalism is like going through the motions, but the spirit of the thing is not there. I'm not sure how it connects to social media. I just made this connection now as I'm rambling and ranting. But I almost feel like there's a number of people who they want to be edgy, or they want to stand out, or they want to fit in, and so they mimic these ideals or these concepts that they don't fully understand. They say the words, but they do not know what they mean. I feel like that's a thing, and right now it's very in vogue to dislike school. It's very in vogue to dislike accomplishing things in school amongst certain people, and it's really unfortunate. It also amounts to a sort of anti-individualism as well. What do I mean by anti-individualism? Fundamentally, I believe that education is a very selfish pursuit. You, at the end of the day, you're going to go through high school, maybe college or technical school. It doesn't matter how far you get in education or what you do in education. You're going to go through education and you're going to be around a bunch of people. And though you're going to graduate, or the course is going to finish, and you'll move on, and some of those people disappear. And as you go along, more and more of those people disappear. And in the end, it's just you. All the learning you did, whether you did group projects, you worked alone, or whether you studied alone in a room or studied in a classroom, at the end of the day, education is for your use. What you do with it, how you use it, is up to you. And that's the big idea about individualism. I tell students, you need to be selfish with your learning. It doesn't matter what the other people in the room think. What are you doing? How are you learning the material? Because at the end of the day, it's just you. All the people you're around, they'll go off and do their own thing. We all go off and do our own thing eventually. Why do you think so many stories are set in high school? The reason why we set so many stories, fictional stories in high school, is it's one of the last moments in people's lives that's a common experience. Pretty much everybody has gone through high school. Whether they dropped out, graduated, whatever, pretty much everyone can say, at that definable moment, I've been through that. And that the reason why you don't see as much going on beyond that for storytelling is because everyone goes their own path. Some people will go off to technical school and pick up a trade and do that. Some people will go off and join the military and have experiences that way. Some people like me, went off to college, and then they went off to graduate school, and they kept going to graduate school because they were insane, or they went insane. That's neither here nor there. But the point is there's kind of an anti-individualism. There's a lot of people who are obsessed with the friends I have, the people I'm around, the social media I'm with. And quite frankly, when you look at people interacting on social media, when you look at them from across the podium, out from the podium, and you look at a student dinking around on social media, they don't have. It's a world of their own perceptions, because it's just the flick of a key or the flick of a touchpad. And for all the excitement that social media is, it's just quiet tapping on a screen. That screen, the things that come out of that screen shut off the person thinking for themselves, and I worry about that. How do you teach individualism? I don't think you do. You acquire your own personality. You're going to acquire one anyways. These are the challenges that I face trying to teach history. How do you get those who are disengaged, detached from their own education? They're just here for the social life, or a break from work because the law requires them to be in school. How do you get them to engage? I don't have an answer to that question. The best I can do is what I was hired to do, and what I've been trained to do, and what I've pursued. I can teach history. I can give opportunities. You can't change the world. You can't even necessarily change people. But maybe you can temporarily compel them to do something in their own best interest. That's the challenge. Anyways, I think the spring 2022 semester will be quite exciting. I'm going to try some new methods for giving student choice. I'm going to use some new technology tricks to help me better help me track how students are learning and progressing through things. The challenges that I just listed, they're not new. They've been challenges since I started teaching. Yeah, there's other stuff out there. The world beyond is, well, there's one Garfield comic. Garfield usually is relatively quiet about most matters, but a number of years ago, I forget the date, there was a comic, one day the comic had John Arbuckle's reading the paper, and he looks up and he says, "What is the world coming to?" Maybe he doesn't even look up. Maybe he just is reading the paper and comments on that. Garfield's laying there comatose, as he usually is, and there's a panel with Garfield just laying there, and then the next panel Garfield says, "Well, as long as it isn't happening here." In an uncertain future, the best we can do is to do what we can in the moment with what we've got, and hope that, well, it's happening somewhere else. On that relatively low note, I'm going to conclude the Pedagogy Rant. You may have noticed that none of what I've been talking about connects to the footage on the screen, and that's because the Pedagogy Rant, I recorded it beforehand, and then I grafted it onto whatever footage I have laying around at the moment. Everything's a mess right now, trying to get organized for everything. So much to do, only one conscious to oversee it. Oh well, until later.